Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar for today. Paula, welcome to the webinar. Thank you for joining on time. We're waiting for a couple more people to join so we can kickstart the conversations, but we appreciate your patience so far. Thank you. Another warm welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. We have our second speaker on the call, and a couple of participants have also joined. I plead that we wait for about 5 minutes as more participants join. Once we have a sizable number, then we can begin the conversations. In the meantime, we are sharing the pre-webinar survey link in the chats. We already shared that with all registered participants via email, but if you have not completed that already, please take a couple of minutes to complete that pre-webinar survey now. We're sharing the link with you in the chats right now. Would appreciate that you complete it before the webinar itself starts. Thank you so much for your patience. Hello, everyone. Good morning once again, and a warm welcome to all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us on this webinar. Now, this webinar on making the NAP work for women, youth, and PWDs is the third in our webinar series under the Amplify Gender Responsive Climate Action through Social Media Engagement Project. Our aim is to break down complex sections of Ghana's National Adaptation Plan, the NAP, highlights its gender responsive commitments, and create the space for dialogue, learning, and collective action. By way of recap, our first two webinars examined the gender dimensions of climate change and how to leverage technology for climate accountability. Today, we want to explore how Ghana's roadmap to a climate resilient future, that is the NAP, can meet the practical needs of the most vulnerable groups affected by climate change, particularly women, youth, and PWDs. So once again, welcome to the webinar. My name is Regina Boni Bote. I am Programs Manager for the Gender Center for Empowering Development, GEMSED, and I'll be moderating this session. Before we begin, a few quick notes on the format of the webinar. It will last about 90 minutes. We'll start with presentations from our speakers. That will be followed by a moderated discussion where I'll ask a few follow-up questions to dive deeper. And then finally, we'll open the floor for your questions, comments, and reflections in the Q&A session. We want this to be as interactive, as engaging as possible. So please feel free to use the chat box actively. Let's get to know our speakers who are ready. They've been on the call for a couple of minutes now. Our first speaker is the Director of Operations at the Africa Disability Institute, the ADI, formerly Voice Ghana. He leads programs that advance disability inclusion and social development across Africa. He's a trained professional social worker. He began his career with the Department of Social Welfare and later worked with the Parent Association of Children with Intellectual Disability, Safe Bond Company Limited at Takra Port. He holds a postgraduate diploma in project management from Cambridge International College, a degree in psychology, and a diploma in social administration from the University of Ghana, Legon. His career reflects wide experience in social work, disability advocacy, project management, and organizational leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our guest, Charles Valentine Nyante. Welcome, sir, to our webinar.
Thank you, Regina, for that introduction.
Yes, great to have you. Our next speaker is a women's rights advocate and a project manager with the Women in Law and Development in Africa, World of Ghana. She is the head of World of Ghana's Women Economic Program area. She's been working with World of Ghana for the past 15 years and has been instrumental in ensuring the successful implementation of over 10 projects. She's also led several campaigns, both at the national and international levels. And these projects have been focused on women's land rights, sexual and gender-based violence, women's participation in decision-making, access to justice, among others. She holds a master's degree in international affairs, a degree in law, and a degree in integrated development studies. Help me welcome our second speaker for today's webinar, Madam Lois Idiamwa Ado. Welcome, Madam.
Hello, good morning. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're pleased to have both of you here on this webinar, and we want to dive straight into the conversations. We want to start with you, Mr. Nyante, on your presentation that will deal with disability inclusion in adaptation planning and climate change action. You can take it over, sir.
Thank you very much. My presentation, I would like it to be shared. Good morning to all participants. Thank you for this opportunity so that we can look at few things, few areas as far as making Ghana's National Adaptation Plan work for persons with disability to be specific. When we look at the NAP concept as we have it, we realize that it has been developed over some years now. It has been developed for some years now. And it started from 2012. But the final one that we are working on currently is in response to 2028. That is the one we are working on currently. When you look at it, it has few areas, especially number one, we look at the climate change as a shared challenge. The challenge is not limited to, am I off?
You're not off. You're audible enough, sir.
Okay. It's a shared responsibility for all of us to take it up. But when you look at the impact is not equally felt. It affects some people more than others, especially persons with disability are more affected. And when you look at that of the women, is more critical than the men. Women with disability, yes, is very critical. The persons with disability are often excluded from most of these activities, policies that are being developed by government. So in the same vein, the National Adaptation Plan has also excluded them proportionately, and we see the impact. Now, when we look at the process is not supposed to leave anybody behind, but in reality, persons with disability and women are left behind. Very critical area. Now, the perspective we are looking at it, number one, is to look at, is it open for persons with disability? How inclusive is it? But in reality, the reference to PWD, you won't see it within the National Adaptation Plan. It's not there. They talk about women, that's all right. They talk about vulnerable, and that limits it. But as to the name, persons with disability is conspicuously missing. It's not detailed enough because it is buried in that of vulnerable groups, which lack serious inclusivity and a specific acceptance of getting persons with disability into that terrain. Now, when you look at the way it is persons with disability are perceived in policy development, it looks like it's just a tokenist that is being provided, but not the real issue that affect them. I think we can move to, as I'm talking, you just be moving the slide along. Now, we will look at slide 4 that talks about specific vulnerabilities and barriers that are there. Now, physical barriers are there. Generally, climate change is so broad, but the National Adaptation Plan tried to narrow it to specific areas for which we want to look at it. Now, the policy by itself or the plan by itself does not create opportunity for persons with disability to be included so much. The accessibility nature during evacuation in terms of flood, like recently, even this week, there was flood in some part of Accra. If that flood extends a little bit broad to some communities and to rooms and the houses, you can imagine how persons with disability will be impacted. People in wheelchair, people using crutches, people using white canes, how will they maneuver? So you see that the evacuation, there is no center that is created for persons with disability to be evacuated to and to be taken into consideration that they are to be number one to be looked at for evacuation purposes. and then the infrastructure facility is also not there. The accessibility of infrastructure, if the centers are there, the accessibility nature is also another challenge for persons with disability. The process of evacuation, the vehicle that they are going to use, and a whole lot of things create a lot of barriers for persons with disability. Now, there is that economic barriers, and we know people with disability, they fall into the category of poverty line. They are in the category of people who are poor. Disability by itself can make you poor before any other environmental factors also contribute to that. You spend a lot of money to do ABCD, getting a gadget, accessing health facilities. Those things are there to reduce you to your poverty level. The type of work you'll be doing before, you will not be able to do it, and it is going to bring you down. Now, the informations that are available as far as National Adaptation Plan is concerned, is also another challenge. The format of the information, are this information in Braille? Do we have sign language interpreters communicating this and signing it to persons with hearing impaired and those kind of things? These are another areas that are so critical we need to look at, and we see, is this going to work for persons with disability? National adaptation as far as climatic change is concerned. Then we'll look at social challenge, the social aspect, the stigma, the discrimination, the cultural attitude of persons with disability is also another challenge as to how the persons with disability will be accepted within the framework of the National Adaptation Plan and be considered as part of the process, as part of the development that will enhance the growth of the larger society. Now, let's look at the institutional barriers. We mentioned a few things already, but when you look at local governance, the process that we adopt in developing plans, everything comes from national to the community. And when it's getting to the community, the structure is so narrow that persons with disability are completely forgotten. We need to look at it from this perspective that this is not helpful for persons with disability. You look at the mainstreaming. They try to mainstream issues of persons with disability, but it's very weak, critically weak for persons with disability. There is an example I mentioned about the flood and evacuation process that already is a challenge when it comes to persons with disability being involved. The impact of climatic change is a great thing to deal with as far as PWDs are concerned. Let's move to another slide. The opportunities for inclusive participation. If we want to do this and include persons with disability critically, then organizations of persons with disability need to be consulted, engaged seriously, to share their view, to make input, so that as we develop the plan, it's not too late to go back to do some of this review, so that the input and needs and concern of persons with disability through their organizations will be taken on board. Otherwise, we are not doing what we are supposed to do to meet the needs of everybody as far as adaptation is concerned. Then the local assembly, the district assembly units, committees, and so on and so forth should be an entry point for this type of conversation, whereby a platform is really created for persons with disability to have their conversation, their issues table up for consideration and for action to be taken on board. Then we also need to understand that early warning system and climate education should be done using NCC seriously, and some radio stations and community information centers to disseminate information on early warning so that everybody can understand, and persons with disability particularly should be targeted and informed and make sure that they understand the process and they are part of it to make their cases available, and also to understand what they are supposed to do when it comes to that type of decision and action to be taken. Ensuring representation of quota, we realize that most often persons with disability are not represented. Like when I look at the adaptation plan and the framework, I realize that very few things concern persons with disability are mentioned. It's like persons with disability are completely forgotten. But we also form a larger population of the country, that our issues cannot be overlooked. And apart from that, persons with disability, those of us who are already in the problem, our issues are not so much pronounced like somebody who will become a person with disability within this area. When you have no issues, you don't know what is going on, and there are no plans, and you are not aware of any safety net, and you know how persons with disability are already suffering if anything happened through accident or any other thing, and you become confined to wheelchair or to use a pair of crutches, it becomes a challenge, or you cannot see or you cannot hear, it becomes a challenge. So we need to look at it consciously and open the floodgate for persons with disability and target them so that their issues can be taken on board, and see whether there will be a task force created for climatic action to be taken. And if that task force is created, we need to have persons with disability to be on board, to share and participate effectively. Lessons from policies and initiatives as we see them going along. Now, National Disability Act is there for persons with disability, but that is another conversation on its own, because we have seen the gaps within the current Disability Act at 715, and we realize there is a need to review. The review process is ongoing to inform policy and decision makers as how to go about the whole thing, and the process of making policies and developing policies targeting persons with disability. So what I want to say in this area is to see how we can come together as community of persons with disability to push that agenda for the review Disability Act that is in a process to be pushed through quickly to enhance the needs of persons with disability. Otherwise, it is not going to help us in this direction. The community-led initiatives should also push agenda that DPO should push agenda. We should push agenda as far as advocacy is concerned, and make people realize, and make policy developers, policymakers, implementers to understand that the way things are going on, that cannot help the development of the society and make persons with disability be part of the larger society. Inclusivity will be a challenge. Now, lessons that need to be looked at, we want to see that inclusiveness must move from policy rhetoric to practical framework. The policies rhetoric, we talk about it, but we do very little about the whole thing. So we are going to look at pathways for policymakers. Hello.
Yes,
Pathway
we
for
can hear you. One
policymakers
of our
and
participants.
practitioners. Mainstream disability in National Adaptation Plan monitoring and evaluation framework. If we are to develop the framework that is going to be developed, if it is not developed already, but if it is developed, the monitoring and evaluation framework should target persons with disability and have their consent included. Very important. Allocation of specific budget. Most often when we are developing budget, we forget persons with disability. When we finish everything, then we remember that we are forgotten, and then we are going to see what we can do and put something small. And some cases, they always talk, we go to the local government assembly, they talk about the 3% common fund. The 3% common fund is for a different agenda. We cannot bring it to the climatic change adaptation issue. It will not help us so much. Now, we are to train local government officials, a JC area to be JC sensitive, and create disability decks in the various assemblies so that during the planning, everything will be done, taking into consideration serious action that will be done. In fact, knowing that disability is part of the population, is part of the society, is part of us, is part of the agenda. Then the accessibility facilities we are looking at, when you look at the accessibility, the structure that we develop, even our private the houses, we need to realign the whole thing and make sure that we do things that are right by making our private infrastructure accessible. Because sometimes we build your public private places, and if as you age or some accident, you are confined to wheelchair and you are trapped in your own house, and it becomes a challenge. So that public facilities are generally make accessible, but issues of private aspect is also considered. Strengthen partnership with CSOs and government. We need to make sure that, like I said from the beginning, we should take this agenda and make sure that there should be an intentional decision by the government and from DPOs, organizations of persons with disability, to push this agenda using parliament. I learned there is a disability caucus in parliament so that we can have them championing some of these things for rest, and we will not have this type of challenge we are having now. Defining success. How do we define the success? PWDs actively participating in decision-making process. All decision-making process, we should make sure that PWDs are considered. And it's good. Sometimes we realize that some organizations, when they are holding some meetings from time to time, they invite some of us to participate and share our views, but we should go more beyond that and do deliberate one, whereby national forum, any national forum, any action that will be taken nationally, persons with disability issues are concerned. Climate resilience infrastructure that is universally accessible. Climate resilient infrastructure that calls for how do we design our building facilities. This should be captured so that we look at it clearly, that we are building houses that are resilient, that are sustained, that withstand climatic change and its impact, so that we will not have problem with a defect which will adversely be affecting persons with disability and also cause additional disability conditions in other people. And the disaggregation of persons with disability, let us know the data on persons with disability when issues of evacuation are going to take place, like the one that happened in the Volta region when they spilled the Akosombo Dam. Till today, we do not have the data of number of persons with disability affected, how they were evacuated, how they were supported, and so on and so forth. All those things were not there, but we need to look at it and take it up and then make sure that we reduce climate-related vulnerabilities among PWDs in their households. Now, accountable roles and roles of citizens and CSO. We are to work like, we need CSOs to work like watchdogs and support and push the agenda. We don't have to wait until we get some projects before we do it. Any forum we find ourselves, CSOs, we need to take it up and talk about persons with disability. When we are talking about persons with disability to be inclusive and to be considered, we are not saying that they need it. We all need it because persons with disability are part of us, and disability condition can happen to anybody. Let us share their concern and amplify their voices so that we will have a common objective and a common development plan that we are all benefiting from it. And citizens must ask for transparency and monitor resource allocation, whether persons with disability are also enjoying. DPOs can provide feedback loops from grassroots to policymakers. They can provide. DPOs, we have that challenge to do that. Ghana Federation of Disability Organization monitors climate projects to ensure inclusivity. They've done that before. And I remember ADI were also championing the cause of accessibility, making sure that Ghana accessibility standard document is being implemented or complied with by the various district assemblies so that before they give permit, they are sure that the building design is compliant to Ghana's accessibility standard document for built environment. To conclude, climate justice is incomplete without disability inclusion. We can't do it. That we have done a very good document plan to meet the needs of the society where we exclude persons with disability. The National Adaptation Plan is an opportunity to reshape adaptation planning for equity. Let's do it that everybody, especially persons with disability, also benefit. Living no time should not be a statement, should be a practical action that should be seen everywhere as we develop the country and move forward. Then there is additional something I want to share, but I don't know whether there is time. So I'll conclude here. And then if there are questions, I may be bringing some of those things out as far as as far as it is necessary. But finally, somebody shared this, that if President Kufuor knows that one day he will use wheelchair, his house will be different. But now I'm sure there are a lot of renovation done for him to be able to access his own environment. Thank you. Thank you for listening. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Charles Nyante, for that insightful presentation. And of course, you'd have the chance to say all the things that you wanted to add during the Q&A session, and in fact, during the moderated discussion that will come right after the next presentation. So with that said, let's move on now to explore how we can make the NAP work for women and youth. Our next guest speaker, Madam Lois Idiama Ado, is here and is ready to enlighten us. Take it over, Madam Lois.
Okay. Hello, good morning, and I'm trying to share screen. I'm trying to share my screen. Okay. I'm trying to share my screen, but I'm not able to see my presentation. Let's see.
Okay, your speaker, you can share your screen. So while we wait for our next speaker to project her screen, share her screen and project her presentation. Invite participants who have questions, comments, reflections, or suggestions to feel free to use the chat box, sending those questions, comments, or reflections. And when it's time for the Q&A session, you can always gesture and it will allow you to speak. Madam Lois.
Hello, yes, I'm ready now.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we
So
can see your
because
screen, but not the presentation.
yeah. Oh, I've shared my present. Oh God. Hello. So what do you see?
I see.
What do you see on the screen?
The Google page.
Oh, well, let me stop sharing and see if I can. Please, have I stopped sharing? Hello, have I stopped sharing?
No, it's still sharing.
Oh, okay, maybe I'm on the wrong page. Let me see. Struggling to, I think 2 pages opened. What happened? Hello. I've stopped sharing, but I think that you are still.
It's still, we still have that screen. The Google page is what is showing now.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought from my end. Let me see.
You can go ahead with the presentation.
Okay,
We'll find a way to
presentation.
share.
Okay,
So
I'll see what
you
I will
can go
do.
ahead with the presentation. We'll find a way
Okay.
to share it for
So,
participants.
okay. So I'm looking at the National Adaptation Plan in relation to women and then the youth. How does the National Adaptation Plan ensure that women and youth are part of it? Okay. So the just a small background for me to be able to make my case very well. So the National Adaptation Plan approach aims at integrating climate change considerations into policy and planning by mainstreaming adaptation across government ministries and sub-national structures. And the plan seeks to identify climate change priorities and adaptation actions within the medium and long-term processes, facilitate institutional coordination around climate change adaptation, and accelerate the mobilization of funds for climate change adaptation. In the plan, they have made some strategies in addressing issues, in ensuring that women and youth are integrated into the process. But before I get there, I want to briefly look at the youth first, because I spoke about women the last time. I want to look at the youth. What are their key challenges in the relation to climate change adaptation, and how have the plan captured these? So the youth have shared that they bear the highest burden of the climate change related issues because they have many years to live. So when they are not integrated into the process, whatever burden that they bear, they enjoy it for a very long period of time. So they bear the highest burden when it gets to climate change because of their lifespan. And so most of the challenges that the youth have raised are that they have limited awareness and education on climate change. Most of the climate change adaptation actions hardly focuses on youth-related issues. And the youth currently, their present issues that they find themselves in terms of unemployment, in those capacity building, climate change is not one of their key priorities. So they hardly go around to research about it and integrate it. So when conscious efforts are not made to integrate them into the process, then they are left out, and then they get to be the ones who bear the highest burden. Also, in terms of technical expertise, then most of the capacity building actions hardly focus on integrating the youth into the climate change processes. So they are very limited in terms of technical expertise on the knowledge of climate change. Most of our schools, the last time the EPA, the one who represented the EPA in the last meeting mentioned, it's just 3 years ago, climate change was integrated into our curriculum. So it's not even, it's not been with us for a long time. Many youth who are within the 18 years to 24 may have missed the opportunity to be for them to receive this capacity expertise in terms of how they could be part of these processes. We also have limited segregated financial support for the youth. There are very few funding support that looks at the youth and then climate change related issues. There is no designated funding both at the government level, at the international levels. So many funding opportunities are not really focused on the youth. You also have the challenging enabling environment in terms of our laws and policy environment. They also hardly focus on how does the youth, because many times the job opportunities they are looking for are not what the climate change adaptation programs are giving them. So they often don't really try to engage the leadership on it. The youth have mentioned that unemployment is one of their major challenges. How do they get integrated into this whole processes if they really want to be part? And then their limited participation in decision making. So these have been some of the key things that youth-led NGOs, there are very few of them too, that have been incorporated into these systems. There are very few youth-led civil society organizations leading the campaign because of their limited expertise. So when it gets to the youth, these are their unique challenges that they also point out to face, that many of the policies and programs that are not really youth friendly. Okay. Then I quickly go on to women. So when it gets to women, we mentioned that limited participation in decision making, because many times we always think that it should be the men who should take decisions. And when it gets to climate change, because of the technical nature, because of the nature of it, it's very few women who have STEM knowledge to be part of it. So that is in relation to women. Also lack of data, sexual disaggregated data when it gets to women, how many women are benefiting, how many women are affected. There is very limited data to back some of these arguments. We also have in terms of high incidence of sexual and gender-based violence related issues affecting many women within the sector. Then we have issues on access to land and property rights, since climate change is about land. And then it's about the environment, is about agriculture, but many women don't access some of these things easily because of our social structure. We also have limited access to technology. Many women are not, because of the educational level, there are very many women who are worst affected by climate change, have very limited knowledge on the use of technology in advancing issues of climate adaptation. So these are the challenges that women have shared, and then lack of specific funding and budgetary allocations to support the initiative. So also it makes it difficult for women-led organizations to really take climate change very serious. So these are the challenges when it gets to women, and I've shared of the youth. When we look at the adaptation plan, they have already made some plans, okay, ensuring that women are integrated into the system. And the adaptation plan states that women, they will engage women and men equally and have their concerns fully reflected into the NAP. So it is within the adaptation framework that women will be engaged fully. They also plan that the implementation and monitoring and evaluation of the process will be gender sensitive. They also planning to target a gender responsive approach in addressing social norms and inequalities that may further exacerbate the vulnerabilities of women in terms of climate change. They also plan using the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection in ensuring equity and equality for women related issues. So that's what the plan has put out. But I initially shared what the challenges that women are faced, but these are the strategies that the plan have put out in terms of women. And then with the youth, the only action within the National Adaptation Plan is to have more involvement and participation of the youth NGOs. So that's the plan, that they want to engage the youth-focused NGOs on environmental and climate change in the adaptation processes. So I feel, looking at the challenges and looking at the strategies that have been shared, they are not, I mean, it's not comprehensive enough to address all the challenges that women and youth are facing within the system. Okay, they didn't talk about finance, they didn't talk about, it's all about integrating women. I mean, I'm not saying that, but the specific issues didn't come out so well when it got to women and then the youth in terms of climate change related issues. So I have proposed that they should be able to, I mean, have that kind of real mainstreaming of women and youth in terms of the adaptation plan to reflect the realities on the challenges, that burdens that they face more in terms of the climate change adaptation in Ghana. And there is a bit of some kind of there's a bit of a gap in the effective implementation to address all the realities that women and youth. So that kind of having that mainstreaming, doing that kind of research, and then showing that we have specific strategies in terms of capacity building, technical support, job creation, scaling up youth and women-friendly entrepreneurship to accelerate incubation and ecosystem support. We also are proposing that they include women and youth in local and national processes related to climate change and creating youth constituencies in relevant bodies to enhance youth exposures and experiences. We also proposing that we engage youth-led and women-led organizations in the NAP processes more effectively. They stated they work with the Ministry of Gender. It's true the Ministry of Gender works with civil societies, but there should be that kind of, I mean, specific targeting, and then capacity building opportunities, designated funding, and integrating it, climate change into our curriculums and manuals, gender manuals, in ensuring that we're able to all be on the same level in making the NAP work for women and youth. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Lois Idiama Ado, and thank you to Mr. Charles Nyante for those presentations. So we want to deepen our understanding in the discussions, and we want to reflect on some of the things that have come up during these presentations, essentially looking at how the NAP can truly deliver for women, youth, and persons with disability. And of course, what concrete steps can be taken to make that happen. Mr. Nyante, I'll come to you first. You gave us a lot to chew on about PWD inclusion in adaptation planning and climate action. But if you were to narrow down to two of the most pressing climate-related vulnerabilities for PWDs in Ghana, what would that be?
To two. I would look at the NAP where they talk about consultation, engagement. This area should be open and deliberately made for persons with disability to participate. The participation of persons with disability in sharing their needs, their concern. And when I talk about participation of PWDs, I'm talking about institutions that are focused on the needs of persons with disability. For example, National Council on Persons with Disability should be one institution that should be taken on board so that they can share concern and needs of persons with disability. Number two, then disability organization or organizations of persons with disability should be identified. There are a lot of organizations of persons with disability who in the country, but lack of funding is making their activity not very effective. What will the government do to push them so that they will be able to move forward? Then number two, we have realized that disability caucus is being formed at Parliament. How do we take advantage of that disability caucus so that policy development will be done with their presence, their input, their concern, having in mind their interaction and discussion they've held with organizations of persons with disabilities deliberately invite proposal from DPOs, organizations of persons with disability, to push their agenda. Otherwise, where we are, it is not going to work effectively. Then the last aspect, you look at the National Adaptation Plan is talking about mainstreaming, which to me, for now, is on the surface. If we are to mainstream, then we create that opportunity deliberately identify organizations of persons with disability in the country using GFD and social welfare. Social welfare have all informations of persons with organizations of persons with disability in Ghana. Let's create opportunity for them and engage them. By engaging them, their input, their proposals will be made available. Then the nation developing this will not have a great challenge, because for now, I see it as if there is a great gap between the policy that has been developed, the plan that has been developed, the framework that has been developed, and persons with disability, their needs. So we need to bridge that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyante. And I'd like to ask a follow-up question, because you're speaking about consultations. Are you aware of any consultations with disability organizations during the development process for the NAP? Whether it was at the stakeholder validation stage, throughout the process, are you aware of any consultations that involved disability organizations, some of whom you mentioned? Mr. Nyate, can you hear me?
I was talking, not knowing, I muted myself.
Okay, we can hear you.
I'm not very much aware, because my organization has not been engaged in any of those things. So I don't know whether GFD has been engaged, but information on National Adaptation Plan and Framework, I must be honest with you, it is as a result of this that I got this information and start reading that document. So communication and information sharing on the whole thing is not the best. Ghana, we develop policies, but we develop policies and the engagement is made at national level and it does not come to the grassroots. So the information doesn't trickle down. So for me to say that I'm aware, I'll be a hypocrite to say that I don't know. I'm not. I don't know. I don't know organization. So that is my
Thank you very
take on that.
much. Okay, we appreciate this honesty and the bit about communication, information sharing relating to the NAP process, which is why a platform like this is crucial and is important, because it helps us to learn about things that are happening. Let me come to you, Madam Lois. It's basically the same question I asked Mr. Nyante, but from your point of view as an advocate for women and youth, if you'd had to narrow down two of the most pressing climate vulnerabilities for women and youth in this current dispensation, what will it be?
The most pressing vulnerabilities of climate change for women and youth, I would say the most pressing is they not being part of the decision making processes. They are not prepared for any of the climate change related effects. Okay, there is no preparedness. There are no systems in place. There are no structures. So whenever there is the climate change there is that high incidence of climate change, the effects, they are the ones who are worst affected because there are no systems and structures to be able to take up their burdens. Okay, so then they have to carry it all by themselves. So the burdens is that they carry it all by themselves because there are no systems and structures and mechanisms that have been really put in place to address climate change related issues, both the youth and then women. So I would say that in all areas, they have, because they have not been engaged, they bear it more.
Thank you for your response. How does the, and this is to you, Madam Lois, how does the current NAP address these realities you've spoken of?
Okay. So I think I mentioned it that the current NAP is planning to have women and youth groups. Okay. So for the women, they are planning to engage the Ministry of Gender as the ministry involved, but the youth, they only said youth related organizations. So that was what they mentioned in the framework, but they didn't mention any government or institution that will be leading that of the youth component. They said youth-led NGOs. So I feel that it makes it a bit difficult, and because which youth-led organizations have they really mentioned? And the youth-led organizations have also mentioned that they are often left out. They engage one or few of them, but they are not really engaging the whole body. So it is challenging. The another plan was for women. It was for women to have them included in participation and decision making, and then the effective implementation of the process, monitoring and evaluation. Women will be part of it. Also ensure that they're able to have some designated resources. Okay, but looking at the realities, the burdens that women bear, I would say that these systems that they are put in place are quite inadequate to meet the kind of the vulnerabilities and then the kind of issues that confront women in relation to climate change. So they have put in a number of them from the consultations. A number of women organizations were engaged, even the Ministry of Gender was engaged. But I would say that we would need a gender-specific strategy if we really want to make it gender and youth sensitive. We need a specific strategy looking at the very key components of it.
Thank you. Before I come to you, Mr. Nyante, just quick information to our participants on the webinar currently. We're still inviting and welcoming questions, comments, suggestions, and reflections of what you heard during the webinar. Feel free to use the chat box and do send in those questions, comments, and reflections. I think I see a hand up, and so I will pause with the moderated discussion and then go and take that participant and hear from that participant's patience. You can go ahead and speak, unmute and speak.
Thank you, Lois. I hope I got the name right. My name is Patience Ajikum, and I work with Strategic Youth Network for Development as the Programs Coordinator. And a very big thank you to our speakers for the insights that they have shared. I agree with what Mr. Nyante said. I think generally the challenge has been with how we publish the information for the general public to be able to access, because to a large extent, some of the concerns, not all of them, have been addressed since the NAP process itself was launched from 2020 up to now. What happens is when you go online, the information or the documents that you find is the NAP framework. So a lot of people rely on that document for the information. But since Ghana received the GCF readiness support from 2020, the NAP unit at Environmental Protection Authority have done a series of engagement, a lot of work, including a risk and vulnerability assessments, and now they're even developing district climate vulnerability assessment and also district adaptation plans. And for us, particularly because we work with young people, we decided not to only be seen as, we usually don't like youth being only positioned as vulnerable groups. And so we took up the charge to engage the NAP unit at Environmental Protection Authority to create more spaces for youth engagement. And we have about 3 or 4 youth organizations that are serving on the cross-sectorial policy working groups, which is a technical body in charge of the development of the National Adaptation Planning process itself. And then we also went a step further to engage the University of Ghana Center for Sustainability department, and partnered also with the NAP project unit to develop a youth engagement strategy. And so there's a lot of work that has been done so far for the NAP process itself. But I agree that the challenge has been how this has been communicated for people to be able to access the information. And I think there's a much broader conversation we also need to have in the country about representation and how information trickles down to the constituents of groups or institutions that are selected to represent certain constituents, particularly in the development of some of these critical national policies, plans, and also programs. And so this is just a little contribution that I wanted to make to the conversation, because particularly when it comes to gender and youth, so currently there's a gender integration strategy, and to even go much further, if you look at the sectorial vulnerability and adaptation plans that has also been developed as part of the NAP process. You look at the water sector, the agriculture sector, ecosystems and biodiversity, and cities and disaster risk reduction. There's a very important consideration of gender, particularly the role that women will play in all of this, in the implementation, in achieving resilience, and in all of these key sectors. And for us, when we're developing the youth strategy, it was a very enriching experience for us, because it afforded us the opportunity to even go across the country and also through online surveys to be able to understand the key vulnerabilities of young people. And I must say that usually climate risk, if you look at the 2 key climate risks, usually temperature, precipitation, they are not very different but they're not very different. It's almost like it affects everybody, but the rate or the impact is felt disproportionately. So you look at the coastal communities who are more likely to have impacts like flooding, coastal erosion. And then when you go to the high temperature zones in the northern region, they have issues with droughts because of the increased temperature. And so for young people, what we realized that our assessment showed us that young people, particularly in the northern region, and between the ages of 18 to 25, they are the people who are highly vulnerable to the impact of climate change. And also, vulnerability is also determined by people's level of exposure to climate impact minus their adaptive capacity. And the woman who presented about the gender and youth mentioned that very well when she spoke about issues like unemployment, level of education, even access to some basic social services. So because young people usually are not, with the capacity, we don't have a good or strengthened adaptive capacity, that heightens their vulnerability to climate impacts, coupled with the fact that they will live long enough to
Hello, Patience.
key areas. So we asked, yes.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Away.
Oh, I think the challenge is with my network. So I'll just wrap up by saying that I think in October, that is when likely the NAP is going to be launched. And so I think when it's made when it's published, a lot of people will be able to have access to some of this information, but there's definitely a lot of work that needs to be done, particularly for institutions that represent, different constituencies in the development of some of these policy documents, to be able to make sure that the information trickle down to their various constituents. So there has been some gains, but after the document has been launched and has been published, the most important aspect will be for the implementation. So what I'll usually say is that the same way as a youth organization, we didn't wait for it to be done and then we'll say government didn't consult us. When we got to know about it, we reached out and were given the letter of support from the EPA to develop the youth strategy. And so I'll suggest that other organizations also take a step further to reach out to them, take out the key areas that are of interest to them, and partner with the Environmental Protection Authority to be able to implement it, either for women or for persons living with disability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patience, for that interjection. It's proven to be very useful, the amount of information you're giving us concerning how much young people and youth-focused organizations have been integrated or involved in the current NAP process. We appreciate those comments. I see another hand. Lauren, please unmute and let's hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you to both the presenters. I'd like to ask my question to Mr. Nyate. I mean, thank you very much for the presentation. I thought I learned a lot. I thought it was very informative. One question I have for you. So I work with SIGRA, and we work at the local level with MMDAs, and we know that, I mean, they're mandated to have consultations, especially around budget. With their constituents, with their communities. But the main barrier that we understand from them is resources. So I wonder if you have sort of any insights or ideas about how there could be sort of more cost-effective consultations at the local level, but that still will represent the needs of persons with disabilities. I mean, in Canada, I know that we use online surveys a lot at the municipal level to be able to engage with everybody at a lower cost, but also with those that have sort of mobility challenges or hearing issues. So do you have any ideas for how we could do that here at the local level in terms of a budget consultation or planning consultations or even town halls?
Thank you very much. To respond to your question, as an organization, we interacted with the district assembly. Normally, they do consultation at the community level. But when they go to the community level, they meet the whole community. And that makes it difficult for them to meet the needs of meet persons with disability. But there was a time we worked with the assembly for the needs of persons with disability to be collated directly into the medium-term development plan. It was funded by Star Ghana. So what we did was, we did it and it became a target consultation where we gather persons with disability at those specific districts that we're working in. And then we transported the planning officers, development planning community to meet persons with disability, where some of the chiefs and the other opinion leaders participated, but it became the PWD-led discussion so that their needs, their issues are captured directly by the development planning officer onto their medium-term development plan. But as to whether it has been budgeted, some they did budget and then they did a completion, because in terms of infrastructure, physical infrastructure, the concern is accessibility. Accessibility should be made, should be inclusive, so that the public facility can be accessible to them, including the washroom and all those things. So yes, in a way we can do that. But the Assembly's issues of targeting consultation is funding. That is what they talk about. So we use our resources because it was a project to do that, and they appreciated it so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyante. And we'll take it from there because you're speaking about district assemblies. I wanted to ask a practical question about the pathways for PWDs to participate in these consultations. For instance, when it comes to consultations on local budget preparations to make adaptation inclusive of the needs of PWDs, what pathways are available currently?
The pathway that are available currently is the district assembly has a database, especially social welfare, have a database of registered persons with disability within the community. And the district assembly also know of a group that has been formed by persons with disability at the district level. Now, some of us NGOs working within those district assemblies, the district assembly is supposed to consult with those organizations of persons with disability to mobilize persons with disability for them to be able to do that consultation and get them involved in the decision-making process. Social welfare can also mobilize them. But, as usual, social welfare is under the district assembly. And if the assembly hasn't got resources to do that mobilization, social welfare cannot engage them. So the district assembly can collaborate with NGOs within that assembly as organizations of persons with disability so that we can do the mobilization, support them to do the consultation. And that is good to go. Thank you.
Very well. Let me come to you, Madam Lois. This is a question from AJ in the chat. And the question is, both speakers' presentations were very insightful. I'd like to know the role community-based organizations or grassroots movement can play in supporting inclusive climate adaptation. This is to you, Madam Lois.
Okay, so I would say that what role? So with this awareness that we are creating, grassroots organizations that work around environment related things that have focus on women and youth and persons with disability, you could easily find out, how could you use your platforms to be able to engage your constituents on these issues so that they will be also be informed about it. And I would think that it's the best is to work directly with institutions that have that are working among the EPAs in our various districts and then at the regional levels to see how they could be able to help build your capacity and then how they could be able to reach out with your constituencies as well as working with the district assembly. So these are the opportunities that CSOs, community-based organizations can do in ensuring that their constituents are also get to benefit from these the NAP plus, the NAP. I would say, and then also finding opportunities to be able to have more deepened engagement and actions. Funding opportunities that are available for community-based organizations. These will help because whatever you do, you need some kind of financial support to deepen work on it.
Thank you very much, Lois. I see a hand up, Mavis. Please unmute and speak.
Sorry, please, I'm Mavis calling from. I'm working at Bob Credit Union in the Western region. And with regards to the last question that was answered, we are also looking at empowering the women and the disabled in their community. My district is in Mpoho district, Mpoho Fiase district. And I would like to know more about doing such. Thank you.
Hello, Mavis. Mavis, it
Hello,
was hard
madam.
hearing. It was hard hearing you. Could you repeat what you said?
Okay. Okay. I'm working with Bob Credit Union at the moment, and we're also looking at empowering the women in our district and the disabled as well. So the previous question I was asked, I would want to know more as to how we can go about it. Thank you very much.
Okay, if I get you right, you want to know how well organizations or institutions like yourself can contribute to the discussions and the processes to ensure that PWDs are truly included and involved in the NAP process. Is that your question?
Yes, please.
So I guess I'll come to Mr. Nyante. If you have an answer to Mavis's question, that would be appreciated.
That is good. But I think at your various district, especially the one you mentioned, Paul West or whatever district, there is an organization that is working for and on behalf of persons with disability, especially the GFD at the district level. They have a segment of persons with disability that comes together and work. So if you meet social welfare identify those people who are representing persons with disability on the Disability Common Fund meant for persons with disability. They are able to organize their people, especially PWDs and PWD women, for you to engage them. That is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyante. Mavis, does this answer your question? Okay, I have seen the hand gesture. Thank you so much. We still have more time or some time to take questions, comments, and suggestions from participants, even as we continue with the conversation. And at this point, let me also say that we have put in the chat a link to a post webinar survey, a few questions, 3 to 5 minutes of your time for you to respond to those questions just to see how well this webinar met your expectations. So please, we indulge our participants to just check the chat box and then click the link to the post webinar survey and answer those few questions for us. Thank you so much. As we continue and with the conversations, I want to come to you, Madam Lois. Basically, he's speaking about opportunities, but we also do know that opportunities often come with challenges. We want to talk about some of these barriers that will prevent women and youth from benefiting fully from climate adaptation initiatives in Ghana. What are some of these challenges or barriers?
Oh, okay. So institutional mechanisms is one of the barriers because most of those who are most vulnerable or high at risk are in hard to reach communities. Okay, and some of these hard to reach communities, it is very difficult to have some of the government institutions working effectively in these areas to be able to reach out to them as and when they need them. So I would say that these are some of the realities on the ground that you hardly will have NADMO in many communities, many hard to reach communities, EPA in many of the communities will be at the regional level. So institutional barriers, also talking about the educational levels and literacy on the issues on climate change will also be a major barrier, because when you don't even have you have no appreciation of what is happening to you, you will not be able to know exactly what to do and how to reach out. So then the educational levels and then the literacy is also a major barrier. And then the next one is information, access to information, even where they know and then they want to take up some actions. Do they have that systems that they could easily reach out to, particularly in the most hard to reach and then the places that where many people are most vulnerable? When mostly we sit in Accra and in our regions and then we're able to plan certain things and they work effectively, but those that need it most, sometimes are not the ones who really get to benefit. So I'll mention some of these few realities on the ground, and if we could make sure that as much as we are working on climate change, which got to do with the environment, we're able to ensure that no one is left behind.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nyante, one more question before we take both of your concluding statements. And it may seem like I'm putting you on the spot, but I think this question is important. Currently, do you feel or see that policymakers have the capacity to integrate disability into climate change action?
Yes, I may say yes, they have the capacity. But as to how to use that capacity, that is the challenge. You have the capacity because the avenues are there, the institutions are there, the facilities are there, the systems are there, and organizations of persons with disability are available. The women groups are available. The media is also there. Let's use the media to disseminate, to share, to talk and discuss some of these things. And when it is done, we will go. It's not a big challenge. Like I said, affirmative action bill has been passed. Women for women is there. Let's take advantage of it as policymakers. They have the facility, they have the resources, they have the capacity, they can do it. Then when you look at disability, as I'm talking about, the disability caucus that have been formed, the number of MPs that are part of that disability caucus, parliament, they are also there. That is another capacity that the policymakers can take advantage of. If we really want to do it, we will do it. The only challenge I think is hindering these policymakers to move is the willingness. The willingness. I don't want to use the word ignorant, but the willingness. If they are willing, because if they are willing to get persons with disability involved, oh, the capacity is there. They can do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll come to you finally for your concluding remarks, but let's take those of Madam Lois Ijeoma-Ado. If you had to make one key recommendation on this subject of ensuring that the NAP meets the practical needs of women, youth, and persons with disability, what will that recommendation be?
Okay, so from the conversations, there have been a number of strategies that have been developed in making sure that women and youth have been captured in the plan, and then how their issues have been also addressed. But I would say that we have a number from rhetoric to action. As much as we wait for the launch, we should be able to ensure that it doesn't become like what many laws do. We pass them and it takes years before people really get to know some of these things. If we could really hit the ground running with them, it will be something very, will be something recommendable, such that we're able to ensure that the reality, we're able to get these strategies to be able to address the realities on the ground. That's what we should hit the ground running once the framework is launched with all the strategies that have been put in place.
Thank you very much, Madam Lois Ijeoma-Ado. Lois Ijeoma-Ado is Programs Manager at WildAF Ghana. Let me take your concluding remarks, Mr. Charles Nyante. Same question I posed to Madam Lois. What will be that one key recommendation you would make to ensure that the NAP works for persons with disability?
Thank you very much. I want to say that they are going to launch the plan now. We should not be lumping PWDs under vulnerability. We should segregate them and deal with them as an entity, so that the launch that is going to be done, organizations of persons with disability are deliberately and intentionally invited and given opportunity to share their concern after the launch. interact with media and let them take their issues up for them, so that the opportunity that is yet to be created, corrections that yet need to be done, should be done, so that the NAP can be implemented to the benefit of everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Charles Nyante. He has been one of our guest speakers. He is the Director of Operations at the Africa Disability Institute. Thank you so much for your insights and your responses to the questions that have come in. Also, a big thank you to you, Madam Lois Idiamwa Ado, for your time on the webinar, for your responses and insights in your presentation about how to make the NAP work for women and youth. To all participants, we are actually very grateful to you for joining the webinar. And if there's any takeaway from this conversation, this session, it's that yes, Ghana does have a roadmap for resilience, but then the success of that roadmap depends on how inclusive and responsive it is, both in the design and implementation. So we appreciate all your questions, comments, reflections, and suggestions in this session. And what we are saying is, even as you leave this webinar and go on to do your daily tasks, remember that you have a role to play in ensuring that the NAP is inclusive, is responsive, and that at the end of the day, we leave no one behind. Thank you so much for joining. We will share the post-webinar survey with all participants via email right after this webinar, and we implore that you take a few minutes to respond to the questions therein. Thank you so much. Mavis, I see your hand up. You have a minute, you can speak, unmute and speak in a minute as you wrap up. Mavis.
Yes, this is my first time joining such, and I would appreciate to join in the subsequent ones that it will be coming. So if I will be getting notification, I don't know how it's going to be done. I don't know if you have a group of women that you do such with. I would really appreciate to join the next one.
Okay, Mavis, if I get you correctly, you're saying it's your first time on the webinar and you'd appreciate if you're able to join the other webinars. Certainly, this is a series of webinars we're hosting as part of the project. There's a third one. We have 3 more webinars planned, and of course, we'll share the invitations to all of you on this particular webinar via email, via WhatsApp. We would share the communication as soon as preparations are ready for that. So thank you very much for the interest you've expressed in joining the next webinar. We'll do well to share information regarding that. And to all other participants, we really appreciate the time you've taken to be part of this webinar. And thank you so much for joining, and have a lovely Friday and a restful weekend for those who are resting. If you're working, have a productive weekend. Thank you very much. My name is Regina Boli Boti. Until the next time, have a good day.
Thank you.